Well, we have all of the cards for the mini set, so let's take a look at what the last day of reveals showed for these cards. And for Demon Hunter, we have a Remixed Rhapsody. Love the emo theme of this card. It's just fantastic. It's a 5 mana rare spell. Deal 3 damage to all minions. Gains an extra effect in your hand that changes each turn. Now again, all of these have 4 different things that different effects, things that they can change into. So the first one is Angsty Rhapsody. It's still going to be 5 mana. It will still deal 3 to all minions, but you also get to draw 3 cards. You have Resounding Rhapsody. Again, still 5 mana, still dealing 3 damage to all minions, but it does it twice. So it deals 3 to all minions, then it will deal 3 to all again. You have Emotional Rhapsody. Again, 5 mana, dealing 3 to all minions. But this one will also give your hero +5 attack this turn. And then you have Wailing Rhapsody, again, 5 mana, deal 3 to all minions, but you also get a 5/5 demon afterwards. So pretty cool. I think this one has some decent effects as well. 5 mana to deal 3, maybe not the worst. You can increase this with spell damage and then getting those effects. Getting a 5/5, getting 5 attack might be okay. Dealing the damage twice might be something that's kind of interesting, especially because that allows you to clear bigger boards without having spell damage. And then the drawing 3 cards, that one might be a little bit more situational, but this one I think is flexible enough, especially for something like Demon Hunter, that these all do have uses for Demon Hunter for sure in Standard. I think a lot of the decks that we've seen will want to use this. It does not have any type of spell school though, which would make it much better, I'm sure. Like if this were a fell spell, woo, that would be great. But that is Remixed Rhapsody. Then we have 2 dual class cards. We have Rogue and Demon Hunter. So here we go. Demon Hunter Rogue cards. We have Tough Crowd, a 3 mana 2/1 demon with Outcast. Return a minion to its owner's hand. Pretty powerful effect. Being able to also use this with your own minions or your opponent's minions, also very powerful. And honestly, the 3 mana and having to have Outcast for that doesn't seem like the worst thing. Yeah, you're not getting a great body here, but I think Rogue and Demon Hunter can both utilize this, and Rogue can utilize it more as essentially another shadow step, right? Being able to play a bunch of cheap stuff probably helps with getting this into the Outcast position, and then being able to bounce something back to their own hand, replay it, seems pretty decent. But if they want to use it for their opponent's thing, they can. I feel like Demon Hunter might want to do that a little bit more, but being able to put something back in your own hand that you want to save is also very good. So the flexibility of this card, I think, makes it pretty nice. And then the other Demon Hunter Rogue card is a legendary. It's Rhythm Dancer Risa, 5 mana, 3/5 with Rush. After your hero attacks, return this to your hand and set its cost to 1. So you can attack into something, then use your hero to attack. It doesn't specify where the attack goes, so as long as your hero is the one attacking, then you get to put this back in your hand for only 1. Now getting to play it for 1 mana, a 1 mana 3/5 with Rush that potentially still could go back to your hand and cost 1 is great. Paying the 5 the first time, a little bit hefty, but if you can keep this going and put it back in your hand every turn, really, really powerful effect to be able to keep using this over and over. Then we move into some Druid cards and the Druid crossover dual cards. So first we have just a Druid card here, Popular Pixie, 2 mana 2/3. Choose one, refresh your hero power, or your next one costs 0. Okay, so you either get to refresh your hero power or just have your next hero power cost 0. This is kind of interesting. Maybe you want to refresh the hero power. Maybe you want your next one to be cheaper. Having this as a choose one, it's defensively statted, but it doesn't have any sort of minion type. I don't know. This seems like maybe it could have been really great in a Zoc type deck, and maybe you still can play it, but I think that Zoc versions of Druid have become a bit less popular after the Anubercon nerf. So being able to refresh your hero power, add and increase that Zoc, taunt bodies that you would get seems great. Maybe you can set this up beforehand to have your hero power cost 0 and then use it for that big Zoc turn. I don't really think a choose one type of deck is ever really going to be that effective for Druid. It doesn't seem very great to me. Then we get into Druid's first dual type card combination, which is Druid Warlock. And we have Blood Treant. It's a 5 mana 2/2, and it costs health instead of mana. And maybe Warlock wants this? Unless there's something that's coming later in like a future set, I really don't see where this goes. Right now, this seems pretty rough. I'm sure there's a use for this, but at least for Druid especially, I really don't see it right now. Warlock, maybe if you're trying to use the health instead of mana thing, but honestly, I feel like this might be one that's just in there to kind of dilute the 5-drop pool a bit, or when you summon random treants or something, you get this. I don't see the use for it right now. And the other Druid Warlock card is Doomkin. It's a 6 mana 3/4. Battlecry, take one of your opponent's empty mana crystals. Okay, this one is kind of interesting. Kind of a cool concept of taking one of the mana crystals. So your opponent has less, you would end up having more. And I would say this is kind of a tech style card, just kind of doing something very specific like that. So the 6 mana, a little bit hefty, and it's got a weak body, but the effect is pretty good on its own, so makes sense. And again, this is not something that has a minion type attached to it. I still think this one is pretty cool. And then we move into the next set of dual class cards, which still is Druid, but now it's Druid Priest. And we have Funnel Cake, a 1 mana spell. Restore 3 health to a minion and its neighbors. For each one overhealed, refresh a mana crystal. Okay, so there's a little bit of healing. It's only for minions. This won't heal face. Maybe they do want to, get that one additional mana crystal for squeezing in a hero power or squeezing in a spell, especially trying to get that overheal. And if there's multiple minions that end up getting overhealed, then it's multiple mana crystals. So that could be pretty impactful, especially since this itself only costs 1. Because it does rely on having minions on the board, I think it has to be a little bit cheaper, but it still seems like a pretty powerful effect. And the other Priest Druid card is Fanboy, a 2 mana 2/2. Another choose one with give a friendly minion +2 attack and rush, or +2 health and lifesteal. So going a little bit in on gaining some defense, in essence, in both ways. Rush still kind of is a little bit defensive, but it's at least something that happens on the board immediately. And you get to choose where this buff goes, whether it's the 2 attack and rush or the 2 health and lifesteal. So if you already have a minion that has lifesteal, well, you can go ahead and give it attack and rush then. Maybe you have a taunt on the board that you just want to have higher health even, and then give it lifesteal so your opponent has to hit into the taunt and give you lifesteal at the same time. You could do that. Being able to choose one in Priest seems pretty interesting. I think it seems a little bit more flexible there. I'm not really sure how often Druid will want to go for +2 health and lifesteal, but again, maybe it just depends on the deck there. And then the other Priest card, this is only Priest, not a dual class, is Ambient Lightspawn. It's a 4 mana 3/4 elemental with Finale and Overheal. Give another random friendly minion +2/+2. This one seems pretty cool, actually. I think the flexibility of having the Finale and Overheal means even if you don't play it for the Finale, but you can manage the Overheal, you're still going to get the effect. And you potentially could get this more than once. If you play it for the finale, you get that effect. If your opponent doesn't kill it and it comes back to your turn, you could get the overheal effect at that point and get it multiple times. This one actually seems pretty flexible, more flexible than just a lot of the finale cards that we've seen, because it has the and. So pretty nice there, honestly. And, even though it is a random friendly minion, you could potentially make trades or do some sort of board removal and then play this with like one other friendly minion. And that's not really random at that point, depending on how you kind of maneuver the board and resources. So I think this is pretty great. Now moving into our final few cards here, we have Warlock, and we have a Soul Warlock card here. Phantom, Lord of the Opera. Phantom, amazing. It is 30 mana. It's a legendary, but 30 mana, 15/15 with Taunt and Lifesteal. And it says, this card's cost is equal to the amount of cards in your deck. This one is pretty neat. I don't think we've really had a card quite to the same effect, especially this Lifesteal on here too, if you can get this down. This might really make people want to try things that burn their cards and dig through their deck really quickly to bring the cost of this down as fast as possible. Not really sure if this is going to actually be something that's played in a lot of those higher tier decks for standard, but if somebody comes up with some great combination or a way to, bring that deck cost down, maybe this ends up being some sort of finisher. But I do also feel like some decks, probably a decent amount of decks right now, have removal and have answers, and even something like just a silence is enough to be able to clear out the taunt and the lifesteal on that. It still has a lot of damage if you silence it, but there are some other answers and removal. So I think this is a really cool card. I'm just not sure if it gets that like top tier play, but people are definitely going to try this one. And then we have our final dual class combination here with Warlock Mage. We have Fiddlefire Imp, a 3 mana 3/2 demon. Battlecry, add a random Fire Mage and Fire Warlock spell to your hand. The fact that it specifically says Fire Mage spell and a Fire Warlock spell is so interesting to me, because in the past we've seen it would say a random fire spell, right? Or a random mage spell, but not both. The pool on these is decently limited, especially while we are in the earlier cycle of the year. So this now and then this kind of time frame next year, this could be a really interesting card, especially since you get both of each. And there is definitely combinations in Mage for cards that didn't even start in your deck. So this seems pretty cool. Maybe not super competitive, at least in Warlock, but I do think Mage can use this a lot right now. And then our last card for the mini set is that Warlock Mage combination again. Reverberations, it's a 3 mana shadow spell. Summon a copy of a minion. Each one dies after taking damage. Well, this seems like a pretty great way to get some decently cheap removal for maybe large minions that your opponent might have on board and giving yourself one, or even setting off death rattles. I mean, because it just says copy of a minion, you could target your own, you could target your opponent's. So copying a slime, potentially for that death rattle, and then, each one dying after they take damage makes that death rattle go off very easily. That seems great for Warlock especially. Mage does have some death rattle stuff, but being able to utilize maybe the hero power with summoning a copy of an opponent's minion and then pinging it with the hero power to kill it off seems pretty decent. And it's 3 mana. This can be discovered off of the Noggling with School Teacher. This can be discovered by some of those mage spells. So there definitely is a lot of ways, even if it's not played in the deck, for some of these combinations, some of these potentials to happen for these classes. And that is all of the mini set cards. Thank you as always for tuning in for these. Let me know what you think of any of these cards, or what card in the mini set is your favorite or you most excited for. Let me know in those comments below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to check out this previous video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.